Hours after Augusta Westland scam, main accused Christian Michel was extradited to India. Fugitive liquor baron Vijay Mallya seems to be feeling the heat. Mallya, who fled to the UK in March 2016, has appealed to various Indian banks to accept his offer to pay back 100% of the principal loan amount that he owes. This comes days ahead of a UK court's decision on his plea not to extradite him to India. The 62-year-old former Kingfisher airline chief has been on bail in the UK on an extradition warrant since his arrest last year and is fighting extradition to India on charges of fraud and money laundering. In a series of tweets, the embattled businessman said that the huge loans that he took from banks went into sustaining his now defunct Kingfisher Airlines afloat despite high jet fuel prices. Mallya said, and I'm quoting, "I see the quick media narrative about my extradition decision that is separate and will take its own legal course. The most important point is public money, and I'm offering to pay 100% of it back. I humbly request the banks and the government to take it. If the payback is refused, why?" Those tweets, remember, coming hours after alleged Augusta Westland VVIP chopper deal middleman Christian Michel was brought to India from Dubai. A ruling at the end of Mallya's extradition trial is expected at the Westminster Magistrates Court in London. That hearing is due for December 10. And staying with news from the UK, amid the war of words over Brexit in the Parliament, the British Prime Minister Theresa May has warned that a no deal would appear miraculously if they voted down the existing deal. She was trying to say that no fresh deal would come about if no efforts were made in that direction. Theresa May asked the members of the Parliament to back the deal in the best interests of their constituents. Despite her repeated requests, the government appeared to be on a collision course with an increasingly assertive Parliament over the next steps as far as UK's exit from the European Union is concerned. Earlier, the British Prime Minister suffered embarrassing defeats when the lawmakers found the government in contempt of Parliament for refusing to publish advice from the country's top law officer over Brexit. The House of Commons voted 311 to 293 in favour of a motion by the opposition parties censuring the government for failing to reveal the full Brexit guidance. The British Parliament is to vote on December 11 on May's Brexit deal. That day could determine the future for the United Kingdom and also for Theresa May, whether she can survive the test.
And don't let anyone here think that there's a better deal to be won by shouting louder. Don't imagine that if we vote this down, a different deal is going to miraculously appear. The alternative is uncertainty and risk. The risk that Brexit could be stopped. The risk we could crash out with no deal. And the only certainty would be uncertainty. Bad for our economy and bad for our standing in the world. And that is not in the national interest. The alternative is for this House to lead our country forward into a brighter future. I don't say that this deal is perfect. It was never going to be. That's the nature of a negotiation. Yes, it is a compromise. It speaks to the hopes and desires of our fellow citizens who voted to leave and those who voted to stay in. And we will not bring our country together if we seek a relationship that gives everything to one side of the argument and nothing to the other. We should not let the search for the perfect Brexit prevent a good Brexit that delivers for the British people.
But why those proceedings were all the more crucial was because of fresh question marks that have been raised over Brexit taking place at all. Let's tell you what Liam Fox, the pro-Brexit trade minister, had to say. I'm quoting from here. There is a possibility that Brexit would not happen. There was a real danger that the Parliament would try to steal Brexit from the British people. Meanwhile, the US investment bank JP Morgan said that the chances of Britain calling off its divorce from the EU had increased after a string of humiliating parliamentary defeats for the Prime Minister. Sterling Pond, which has seesawed since a Brexit referendum, touched a 17-month low, but later revived after optimism grew that Britain may not leave the EU without a deal in place. Our correspondent Oli Barat getting us more.
That's exactly right. Parliament certainly asserting itself, flexing its muscles. And one of the amendments that was put forward yesterday, which Theresa May's government lost in Parliament, could be crucial in all of this, because what it does is essentially give MPs in Parliament much more power if Theresa May's deal is voted down by Parliament next week. In that scenario, MPs would have much more say in the future direction of Brexit, much more say in suggesting newer types of arrangements that don't go along the lines of the deal that Theresa May has reached with Brussels. At the same time, that may, funnily enough, give Theresa May a little bit of a boost in terms of making the argument to the Brexiteers in her party, those MPs who want Britain to come out of the European Union in a clean or hard fashion, as it's sometimes called, because she can say to them, look, if you don't give me this deal, if you don't let me get this deal through Parliament, you may end up with the type of Brexit that is utterly detestable to you, a soft Brexit, staying in the European Union in all but name. So yesterday, Tuesday, was a nightmare day for Theresa May in the House of Commons, no doubt about that at all, but she may have just come out of it with one idea, which is going to make her much more able to make the case to the Brexiteer MPs in her own party. She's still got a huge distance to travel, though, if she wants to win that vote on Tuesday. It still looks very, very difficult indeed as things stand.
Let's now get to the latest on the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which does not seem to be dying down anytime soon. In the latest, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has said that he avoided engaging in talks with the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to avoid boosting Poroshenko's poll agenda. Take a listen into what Putin said.
Дело ведь не в том, что я просто уклоняюсь и не хочу с Петром Алексеевичем разговаривать. Дело не в этом. Дело в том, что я не хочу принимать участие в его избирательной кампании. А ведь что происходит на самом деле? Петр Алексеевич искусно создает кризисные ситуации. На самом деле провокационные ситуации. Первый шаг. Второй, он тут же перекладывает ответственность за содеянное на Россию. И третий, он хочет тут же продемонстрировать, что он успешно решает возникшие проблемы, причем не по его вине. Вот в чем все дело. Вот нехитрая комбинация. Я в этих комбинациях не хочу принимать участие и не буду.
And in the latest, Russia's defense ministry has said that 2 Russian submarines carried out emergency deployments for detecting, accompanying and destroying sea and coastal targets with rocket fire. Submarine crews from the Black Sea Fleet were also due to practice deep dives and to work on techniques such as emergency surfacing. Separately, medium-range surface-to-air missile systems in the east of Crimea region practice detecting, identifying and shooting down aerial targets. The exercises coming at a crucial time of heightened tensions between Russia and the West over Russia's seizure of 2 small Ukrainian armored artillery vessels and a tugboat and their crews. NATO foreign ministers discussed the Black Sea region issue with Ukraine and Georgia's foreign ministers. NATO Secretary General has said that the US-led military alliance had boosted its presence there in response to what he said were Russia's aggressive actions.
NATO ships routinely patrol and exercise in the Black Sea. This year, ships under NATO command have spent 120 days in the Black Sea, compared to 80 days the year before. Several allies conduct NATO air policing in the region. Allies also conduct regular reconnaissance flights.
With the Russian troops flexing their muscle, Ukraine too has ramped up its defense forces along the Russian border. Ukrainian armed forces launched a series of military drills across the country this week, including one scenario where the forces practiced repelling an enemy ground attack. In fact, Ukraine's military chief has said that Russia has been ramping up its forces near the border with Ukraine since August and now poses the greatest military threat since 2014.
Загроза військового характеру існує практично по всьому периметру кордонів України. Це і північний схід, напрямок Чернігів-Київ, це і схід, Суми, Харків, це і південь, Херсон, Миколаїв, Одеса. І навіть розглядаємо один з потенційних напрямків – це із напрямку Придністров'я, де розгорнута оперативна група російських військ.
United States is mourning the passing away of a tireless leader. Former U.S. President George H.W. Bush's flag-draped casket has been kept in the Capitol Rotunda for the last 2 days. Family and friends bid an emotional goodbye to Bush Sr. Bush's service dog, Sully, too paid the casket a visit. A picture of him resting beside Bush's coffin has warmed hearts across social media as well. Here's a look at the emotional tribute to the late president.